Hello, everyone. This is the Ibrox Channel podcast, and it's as you've never seen it before. I don't normally do stuff on YouTube, but it's time for the AvenGERS Superpod. So we are live across YouTube with some of the best talent from the Rangers podcasting universe. So I'm Andrew, of course, on the Rangers podcast, aka Doran Goyan's stunt double, and the kid that Gordon Ramsay didn't know that he had. I'm, of course, as I say, from the Ibrox Channel podcast, and it is my turn in the hot seat for this month's AvenGERS pod. So we thought it was going to be a bit of a quiet one this week. We're going to look a little bit at the Old Firm Cup final just to relive some PTSD, of course. But we've got a little bit of breaking news. But before we get into all that, let's introduce everyone here. So we've got Andy Stewart from the Gallant Few. So Andy, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Gallant Few.
Hi folks, Andrew from the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. If you listen to the first AvenGERS pod, Colin, my good pal, and he's usually hosting on the Gallant Few. I've subbed in from tonight. I think he's enjoying his summer holiday. I would too if I had to go to that cup final, which I unfortunately had to. So he's enjoying his time off. So I'm in tonight, known as the kind of youngest in our pod. Colin's running gag is I'm 12 years old. So anything pre-2004 Rangers probably, then you've stumped me. But, you know, it's the best time. There was a whole era named after the kind of time I've seen, the banter era. You might have heard of it. So, yeah, that's my wheelhouse. So, yeah.
Oh, well, do you know what? There are definitely worse times to live around, you know, so don't worry, don't you worry. We've all been there. We've all got our eras that we shudder when we think about. Also, we got Scott McPike from SM Media, who does the Rangers Assessment Pod. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about SM Media, what you do, and the channel.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure to be joined by an elite group of people. SM Media is basically a Scottish football podcast. We obviously have went into the Rangers channel that this year. That's our first season doing a Rangers exclusive podcast. It's went very well. I think everybody's been on apart from Thommo. As I say, really good kind of setup we've got as well. A lot of Scottish football stuff. Got a lot of other sports going as well. We've got like we're moving into boxing and darts as well. That's all starting kind of coming in June. Just after a heavyweight fight, so that was good timing. But there's a lot of stuff coming up over the next kind of few months. Obviously, we've got the Euros coming up. Scotland are very involved in that, so we'll be starting in June. We'll have a kind of daily Euro content, and hopefully, we'll have a lot of the guys on to do that as well. I can every night plan and doing a kind of nightly Euro pod, and obviously we'll have a lot of Rangers news. And just based on what we've had the last kind of week or so, the transfer news has been fairly chaotic. So looks like we're going to be busy.
It does, doesn't it? You think that first week, it'll be just to come down for the end of the season. The season's not officially ended yet, really, I guess, is it? But it's definitely been a busy week and a busy day. But yeah, good to have you, Scott, as well as yourself, Andy. And also, we've got Thommo from the Rangers Journal. So, Thommo, tell us a bit about the Rangers Journal and yourself, my man.
Yeah, good evening. My name's David. I'm a contributor to the Rangers Journal. First of all, thanks for having me on. Rangers Journal been active for a while on, Twitter, X, whatever you refer to it these days. Really got into sort of the podcasting back end of February, and we've been growing fairly nicely since then. Got through the 1,000 subscribers barrier earlier this month, which is good. And again, we've got daily content. One of the main contributors, Kai, he does a good near enough daily thing of, transfer targets, goes in depth, has a look at them, how, what their stats are, what sort of players there are. And he also does things such as looking at more probably obscure leagues, looking at players that Rangers could possibly sign. So there's daily content there, and sort of going forward for the summer, we've got a lot of exciting things planned. We've had interviews in the past couple of months with the likes of Kevin Thompson, Clint Hill, Jeff Winter's been on, and in the summer I'm going to be hosting a Euros pod, pretty much a roundup of what's going on at the Euros. So that's exciting, and again with just the daily content and looking at the transfers that are going to be inevitably happening, because I think it's going to be a very busy summer for us. But yeah, I say we're a fairly new pod, but it's going well and growing nicely. So as I say, thank you again for having us on.
Absolutely brilliant. Look at that. Like the bar's raised so high now. I feel like an imposter on here. Absolutely brilliant. And we've also got the legend from every other Saturday. We have Jack here, Jack Hamilton. So Jack, tell us a bit about yourself and the Every Other Saturday pod.
Hi, cheers for having us on again. It was good the last time we were able to talk about Rangers, obviously in a more positive light at that time, going for a title and a cup and stuff. Now we're picking the bones out, which ended up being a disappointing season, but always good to be on talking Rangers. You can find us over on Twitter at Every Other Satu1 is the handle over there. We tweet a load of crap about transfers and our opinions and stuff. And you can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Every Other Saturday podcast. We tend to upload every week, covering kind of all bases when it comes to Rangers. So I look forward to getting it.
Absolutely brilliant. So we've got some of the best in the business here on the Rangers podcasting game. So get over to everyone's pages, get them liked, get them followed. There's lots of content, especially over the summer where there's not much football. We can delve into a lot of things. And especially if you look at the Rangers Journal, you'll find out what Hefty probably had for his dinner yesterday. They're definitely doing some in-depth stuff, and everybody does some absolutely cracking stuff. So yeah, do get all that followed, liked, subscribed and everything. So big news. So I thought I'll plan out what we're going to talk about tonight, and then of course there's several things that are announced today. Of course, why not throw that grenade into the mix. But Rangers at just before 5, I think it was, announced the departure of James Bisgrove. So I'll read a wee bit here from the statement from the club's website. Rangers can confirm Chief Executive Officer James Bisgrove will leave the club, having accepted a new football role in the Middle East. The Rangers board have implemented an interim executive structure, and together with John Bennett, Philippe Clement, Niels Koppen and the football board will prioritise the execution of the summer football activity. So John Bennett will assume the role of executive chairman on an interim basis to ensure continuity and support to the wider executive team as they focus on executing the club's plans for the summer, both off and on the pitch. So obviously that's quite big news. John himself commented, I would like to thank James for the work he's done at the club over the last 5 years as commercial and marketing director, and latterly as our CEO. Our commercial revenues grew significantly under James's leadership, while in the last year he was an integral part of the off-field restructuring the club has implemented. The executive team James helped shape has firmly established itself, and I fully expect its momentum to be uninterrupted. We wish James every success in his new role. So that's it. James Bisgrove has left the club. He's gone for a lucrative deal out in the Middle East, like a lot of people do tend to these days. So we'll start with yourself, Andy. Do you have any initial thoughts on the departure of James Bisgrove?
I'm hoping it could be the start of Steven Gerrard giving us a treble. Taking Bisgrove and then Tav and Goldson. Who said we couldn't win the treble this season? It was quite a shock, and I think I'd heard for somebody maybe a month ago something about this is in the works, but it kind of just all died down, and it kind of just went out of my mind. But I seen the tweet come through on my phone, and I went, interesting. But it was. We'll see how that whole we're going to carry out our plans, hopefully uninterrupted by this news. We'll see how that actually pans out. That's the main thing, because obviously we're going into a very important time, with this big rebuild that we're going to have, and if he's integral in putting these people in place, your Clements, your Coppins, they're going to have to go without him now. So yeah, we'll see if they put the money where their mouth is in this whole kind of statement of uninterrupted by this departure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously you can see Bisgrove, as a fairly decent businessman in some aspects, has generated revenue for the club, but I guess that performances on the pitch say otherwise in some sense. Obviously, we are a business, but we're also a football club. It's an interesting one, but it is a summer of change, so maybe more change is needed. So Scott, what's your initial thoughts on the departure of Bisgrove?
Like Andy, it was something I'd heard maybe about a month or two ago. It was like, this is potentially, it wasn't mentioned where he was going. It just said like there's potential that there was talk of a higher offer coming in. So when it was, I was surprised when it was announced. I didn't expect it. Like today, I didn't expect anything to come of it, and it's happened. And I think there's probably about 3 million reasons why he's left, because I'd imagine the payout's pretty good. Now, first thing we have to do is we have to say that James Bisgrove did do very, very well in terms of commercially. Like you see, there's sponsors in the I think there's like 9 sponsors in the shorts now because of James Bisgrove. So there is positives there, and that's the reason he was promoted to CEO, is because he did a very, very good job in the commercial side. He was a lot more modern than I think the person before him was. So I think that was something that mostly his time at Rangers was very, very positive, apart from a certain Australia thing, which I think, to be fair to him, he came out and kind of fronted quite well. But I think he was always going to be looking for a better. I think he was always going to look up the way, and I think I'm not surprised that that's what's happened. It's difficult because obviously it's pretty bad timing, because it's right at the start of a summer rebuild that we're going through again. It's not a good time to lose your CEO, but again, as Andy rightly points out, hopefully nothing's too badly changed. Like hopefully they're already kind of plans in place. Like Copper and Clement have already got a kind of structure that they want to follow. Bennett seems to, as kind of critical as I will be about the board, and sometimes I do mostly think that the right guys are there, and I hope kind of nothing's unchanged. And I do think there is a structure there. I do want a certain person in the job who we'll talk about maybe later on. But I do think we do need to say that Bisgrove did a good job, but I'm hoping that nothing really changes in the summer rebuild. I'd like to think the kind of groundwork's already been put in place.
Yeah, I guess there's always preparations for these type of things, isn't there? Especially, with certain people, there's always going to be headhunting, isn't there? From a business point of view, very intelligent businessman. You look at the back of a lot of the match day programs, and there's so many sponsors. There's, which is additional revenue. But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one. And as you say, with the Sydney situation, yeah, sometimes you just got to admit that you got this one wrong. They did tear up the contract. Thommo, what's your initial thoughts on the departure of James Bisgrove? I know it's still early, and obviously, I guess if someone's going to leave, it's probably better to leave just before the preparation for the next season. Or is there a good time to leave? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just something else that we don't need. It just always seems to be an upheaval somewhere, whether it's a new manager, new players. Now it's one of our, now it's our CEO. Yeah, I agree with what's been said before me. I think he has done a good job. The thing in Australia was obviously a bit of a brain fart, but again, he was looking at getting money in to help the team, help the club. So from that basis, it was good that we've got someone that is thinking outside of the box. And these things don't just happen. So I would like to think that the club have known about this. As the two chaps have said before me, they've heard whisperings a month, 2 months ago. So I'd like to think the club would have known about this and had a bit of forward planning, and they have candidates to take over, and hopefully it won't impact too much on what Clement and Coppin need to do this summer, because the last thing we need is hanging around and trying to panic buy and pick up late players in the at the end of the August window. We need to get players in early, so hopefully that stuff will be well down the road, and whoever the new man is that comes in can just slot in and pick that up.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Hopefully it's a seamless process. One of the comments there from Curry Muncher, Beale appointment, giving him a free hand on incomings and outgoings, concentrated on the off-field finances more than the on-pitch stuff. Yeah, I think that the problem is for somebody like that, you're not really going to be remembered for the extra 40k revenue you've made in Evanston House on beer sales. It's what happens on the pitch. It's shiny things, isn't it? Waving in front of your face. So I think, when it comes to football and football fans, we're not all going through the P&L sheets, are we? The profit and losses. He's helped the club turn a corner in the respect that we need to look at profitability, hasn't he? From sources out with of winning the Scottish League, because of course you only get 3 million for that, and things like that. But so Jack, what's your initial thoughts on James Bisgrove leaving for pastures now?
I think kind of similar to all the guys before me. It seems like he done a good enough job. I think maybe when he went to that CEO role, that wasn't obviously his forte. He was more like a commercial kind of guy, bringing sponsorships, money in. I think on the basis of all of that, on the face of it, looks good for the club. We've achieved loads for that way, but as you say there, it's all about trophies and a decent team in the pitch. So I think he'll obviously go on his ventures. He done a decent job while he was here, but we're looking to obviously definitely improve. Again, if somebody comes in and does an even better job in having the CEO department, it would be nice. And I just hope it really doesn't kind of halt the plans that were already in place, hopefully for the summer. As you say, it's a massive rebuild now, not only with the players that are leaving and coming in, finding a new CEO as well. But I think if there were murmurings of this over the past couple of months, I would believe that there'll be plans in place for somebody to come in pretty soon and hopefully be aligned with Neil Scoppen, John Bennett and Philippe Clement.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you there, Jack. If it is something that, like the guys have said, if it's something that's kind of been murmurings over the past few months, then you imagine there would be a kind of succession plan. It's probably a good time for there to be change upstairs, especially with the changes that are going on the pitch. And of course, now with Niels Coppen getting his first kind of summer, it'll be interesting to see who we'll look at getting, who we're looking at acquiring. We'll obviously go into that a little bit later on as well. We'll have a little look at the signings. Curry Muncher again, he's put, was he not also the one responsible for 2 Rangers travelling businesses that went bust and a sponsor? Now, I think the sponsor, is he talking about the shirt sponsors? Is it Sport Mongo? That deal, there was a couple, wasn't there? That as soon as they were printed on the shirt, because you couldn't get it for ages, and then as soon as it was printed on, they went bust. That's a good company name for the west of Scotland, isn't it? Sport Mongo. But and I think the other one was it the Bitcoin thing, BitK or something? Was it BitK? I can't remember now. But end of the day, money has come in from that, I guess. Even if they have gone bust, it depends if they fulfilled their contracts, I guess. But so James Bisgrove is off to pastures new. So in with the new, out with the old. Let's go to the old and talk about the Scottish Cup final. Now, we're not going to delve into the full ins and outs of that game because we've been traumatised enough this season. The season's just ended. And I think we've all been speaking on our respective pods until we're blue in the face about certain things, whether it be refereeing decisions and stuff. But we'll just go into some of the key points on the way we ended the season. Scottish Cup final. The week going into it wasn't really in any sort of, didn't really feel it. And, I think a lot of you guys were probably the same. But on the day when we saw the team, I thought there might be something in it. Obviously, it's the hope that kills you, as per usual. But let's just go through a few of the instances from the game. So obviously there was a bit of chat around the Kyogo Davies penalty incident where Kyogo headers a ball off Ben Davies and it comes off his hand. For me, not a penalty. It's not a penalty in the rules. Anybody else in the position that it might be a penalty? What would you reckon to that, Andy? Is it clear?
No, I mean it's in the rules. I mean I would be surprised, but not surprised if you get what I mean. In the matchup, but that's just my blue tinted specs probably talking there. but it was one at the time where, you know, in real time you see it hit off the arm and you go, God, that's not what we want. But when you look at it back and you go, okay, it's fine then. It's just one of those ones that's pictures, still images make it look horrible, but it didn't linger on my mind too much, to be fair.
Nah, yeah, exactly. It is quite a clear and obvious one, isn't it? Was that the same for yourself, Scott? Is it not a penalty for you?
No, it's not a penalty. It's nonsense, to be honest. It's one of those where Ben Davies can't get his hand out of the way. There's nothing he can do to get his hand anywhere other than what it's doing. I'll go on record and say that the referee didn't cost Rangers the game. Rangers inept finishing cost them the game, and the fact that I wouldn't even say the bad defending of the goal. They were woeful at the start, and then they kind of grew into it. But I just think it was a similar story to what we've seen for so long. It's just Rangers don't finish, and Rangers don't have much quality, whereas Celtic's two subs or two loanees come on the park. One plays a terrific. One picks up the ball in a very dangerous area, is able to drive 40 yards forward, pass the ball to the finisher who's on loan, who Celtic didn't want to begin with. It gets in front of Rangers' new defenders and finishes it. Rangers don't have anybody that does that, and that is the story of the game for me. Like, Rangers did show up better in the second half and probably should have had a goal, but they didn't. Nick Walsh, as bad as his performance was, it wasn't Nick Walsh's fault that Rangers didn't win. It was Rangers just doing what they do and just not being able to beat Celtic. That is it.
It's not a thing just unique to Nick Walsh, is it? Just the quality of refereeing in Scottish football. You know, there are a majority of other referees in the Scottish game that you're probably getting a not too dissimilar result. The frustrating thing is it just feels that anytime you've got a kind of, a 50-50 kind of, this could go either way, it generally goes against us in these games these days. So now the goal that was chopped off, of course, will come to you, Thommo. Is that a goal for you, or are you in the goalkeepers union here?
Definitely not in the goalkeepers union. I'm a striker through and through, so put the goalkeeper in the back of the net with the ball as far as I'm concerned.
Good
but
man.
It's one of those where I don't think the push on Hart is enough to make him go flying like he did, and I don't think there's enough there for the foul. You see the one in the first half where Scales, two hands in the back of Sterling, pushes him over. Referee sees that and linesman sees it, and no, there's not enough in that. So how can there be enough in the one on Hart? The only sort of caveat to that is these days you believe on a goalkeeper, they're getting a free kick. I think it was silly from Raskin, because I don't think Hart was getting the ball anyway, regardless of what happened. But it was good to see the corners that we're putting in. They were really dangerous, and it's something that we seem to have not been able to do all season. And then come the last game of the season, we start whipping in dangerous corners and putting the goalkeeper under pressure. But when it goes to VAR, they need to, I don't know what Walsh has shown, but there's other incidents there before the push where Balogun, Davies are getting held round the neck by defenders. So if you're going to rule out that goal for the push on Hart, logic says those fouls are being committed first. So surely it's a penalty. Disallow the goal, but it's a penalty. So it's just frustrating. It really is. And it's one of those things with VAR where I'm mostly in favour of VAR, but even on Saturday when that goal went in, I seen Hart go running off up the pitch, and I thought there's going to be a VAR check here. I couldn't get overly excited about the goal, that it was going to be given, which, as we all know as football fans, is a sad state of affairs, because you want that burst of emotion. But as I say, when I seen Hart go running off after the referee, the way it's gone in the rest of the Old Firm games this season, where game-changing decisions are going against us, you just had it in the back of your mind. Something's coming here. And when you seen it, it was like, I could understand why it was disallowed, but I thought it was harsh. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. No,
Can I jump in? Can I jump in on that quickly, just to and I do agree with that. Rangers have had 4 incidents in Old Firm games go against them this season. Very subjective decisions go against them. You've got the Dessers challenge, which I don't think is a foul. You've got the Johnson handball, which wasn't, which again is probably a penalty. You've then got the one in the 3-3, which is in a nothing area of the pitch and isn't a foul. And then you've got this one, right? Now I'm not in the.
Also had the O'Reilly penalty.
Yeah, that as well, right? So, right, there's 5, right?
So it never
right,
came
so
to
that's
anything.
5, right? Okay,
So,
right.
Yeah,
that's a pattern. Now that's not a pattern that referees are looking to disallow goals against Rangers. That is what happens when you put pressure on referees, because that's what's going on here. Now, I've got to be very subjective here, but we see what goes on. We know that that decision doesn't go the other way in Saturday. It just doesn't. And I'm not. The referees in Scotland are very, very poor. We understand that. But so often in Scotland, in these types of games, VAR is not used as a tool. It's used as an out. If there's an opportunity to disallow it, it will get disallowed. Now, it's an easy out for a lot of referees in that game, because that decision doesn't go the other way, and that is down to the pressure that's put on the referees by... And Celtic are good at it, to be fair. And we see that. If that had went the other way, we would be talking about it now. It would be back page in the paper by certain people who come out, and we all know what happens. We've seen it we see it all the time. It's just nonsense. But yes, it's a foul. But as Thommo rightly says, there's 3 or 4 incidents before that where it is. If it's given as a foul, why are those not given as a foul? I mean, it's weird. It's weird. And I am very much of the opinion, and I've said this before, the time to call out referees is not when you've lost the game. See, if Rangers had won that game on Saturday, I would have been screaming from the rooftops if I was Rangers, if I was Philippe Clement, saying the referee could have cost us that game today. The referees up here really need some sort of address, because that's again, and we saw after the goal, how many cards did he dish out? He lost control of the game. That's the problem. The referees they lose control of the game so easily, and that's what we'll need to call out. We'll not need to call out nothing conspiracies. What we'll need to call out is how easy it is for referees to use VAR as an out if they can. Do you know what I mean? They don't use it for what it's for, and we're seeing VAR get hammered in England. But up here, it's not allowed to be successful because we don't have the right. The people running VAR are poor, and they don't use VAR as a referee's tool. They use it as an excuse to disallow easy decisions. There was a thing came out saying I think VAR was responsible. It made 15 mistakes. It's not VAR making the mistakes. It's the individual. It's the people using VAR have got the decision wrong. We need to call this out. We need to be vocal and say, and every club, not just Rangers, every single club in Scotland that uses VAR needs to come out and say, we don't trust this technology, not because of the technology, because of the people running it, because of the people involved in it. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to referee a game. So often, every single Sunday, you could go through my direct messages. There is managers in every single league in Scotland messaging me about how poor the referees are. It's not just at the top level, it's all over Scotland. I'm seeing people in the 9th tier who I've seen live in person get Junior Cup finals, get to be 4th officials in like South Challenge Cups, get to referee League One playoff finals when they're rubbish at tier 9. How's this happening? We need to call this out. We need to be vocal and say these referees, until the people at the SFA and the SPFL rightly call it out, this will continue to happen. And people are saying about full-time referees, if you fail at your part-time job, do you want to promote people to be full-time? No, we need to be better. It's not just making them full time. The people, like you saw it, the worst referee in this country is now going to be head of refereeing. It's a problem. And again, I'm going on a rant, and I don't mean to.
No.
It's just so bad how Willie Collum, every single game you watch him, loses control of games, doesn't know how to control games, throws out cards like they're going out of fashion. He then becomes our head of refereeing. And I was speaking to a friend of mine about this who's a referee, and I'll get him in trouble here, I won't name him. He said something very, very interesting to me in January. He said, because there was talk of obviously Crawford Allen leaving, and they said, like, we need to look elsewhere. We need to look at somebody to come in and actually just see what the problems are. And he said, no, Colin will get it because he's retiring and he's in with the bricks. There you go. It was predicted in January. There's a tweet of mine from March writing Willie Collum will get the head of refereeing because it's so clear that we just do not have the competence to rightfully call out just how poor these referees are. How can Willie Collum be in charge of every single referee in Scotland? Explain that to me. It's so poor. It's just so poor. And only in Scotland do we reward bad behaviour and bad officiating with rewards. It's the only place in world football where a man who has lost control of every single game he's officiated in Scottish football becomes the top man in refereeing. It's a wider problem than somebody going out and saying Rangers got all the penalties.
Do you know what?
Deeper issue.
You're totally right, because, you know, I think a lot of teams can pick out what Willie Collum has, because Willie Collum's had plenty of occasions in his time in Scottish football where he's made absolutely insane rash decisions. One of the worst ones for me was the Candeas red card at St Mirren, when it was it Anton Ferdinand, wasn't it?
Do you remember the one? Do you remember Inverness Arbroath? Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Do you remember Inverness Arbroath? Go back and watch. I think it was a couple of years ago. It was the Arbroath. Do you know what I mean? It was a brilliant story. Arbroath are nearly getting into the Premiership. Something unthinkable. Both sides are actually relegated now from the Championship, which I find quite hilarious after 2 years.
Mad.
But on that point, he completely loses control of the game. Sends two players off for absolutely no reason. The next day in the Talk Sport, I think it was, I'm sure it was Simon Jordan and Jim White, are laying into him repeatedly. But up here, he gets the Scottish Cup final 2 weeks later. I mean,
if you're a young...
doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's no recourse now. If you're at work and you make mistake after mistake, even if it is a high pressure environment, you go under review, and there are procedures in place because clearly you're not competent enough to do your job, whether it be retraining, this, that, or the other. If you're a young referee coming through the system now, which to be fair is probably difficult in Scotland because of all that comes with being an official, when your head of officiating is Willie Collum, you look at that as the standard. It's not good, and it really isn't. It's the old pals act, sadly. He's in a nice cushy position now, and he will be. And will anything really change with Scottish football, Scottish refereeing? No, the standards are poor. We've been on the wrong end of several goals that have been chopped off in Old Firm games where you go, okay, right. You try and think of it logically. You take the blue tinted specs off. I was at the first Old Firm game of the season, and right down in front of me, the Dessers on Lagaby Elk. Tell me where that's a free kick. I'm sorry. Tell me where that's a free kick. It's looking for, and I understand when things get reviewed, they're always looking at the attacking phase of play. Right, it's the attacking team that will be the ones that are going to be penalised more than anything. But that's not right, and it's not right. We are sick to death now of just, you look at the football and you don't know if you can celebrate or not. And that's the thing, and you are and you aren't. And it is just a frustrating thing. But that, for me, that was one of the gutting things from the final. It's, once again, granted, we weren't good enough to win the game. We middle to front, we had improved, but we just don't have a finisher in that team at the minute, and that's something that was severely lacking. Got into a few good positions. I think Silver even managed to get into a good position when he took the ball around Johnson, and then just it was a limp shot. There was a few of them. Tav with a few limp crosses. Obviously, they improved in the second half. But, Curry Muncher there just said a few minutes ago, totally agrees with you, Scott. But as soon as Rangers call it out, the rest stick their head in the sand. Yeah, Rangers are referred to as Statement FC every 5 minutes.
Rangers stick their head in the sand. And this is where I had an issue with Clermont. Rangers did call it out and they got told the next day by Clermont, please don't do that. And I get it. I get why Clermont doesn't get it yet. Yeah. But Clermont's coming from that's just where I totally disagree, and I know I'm getting off course. That's where I totally disagree with the SFA, because they said in the statement where they appointed Colum, we interviewed candidates from Europe, Asia, North America, South America, and Willie Colum was the outstanding candidate.
Outstanding, eh?
That tells me one of two things.
If that's a true statement, then God knows what the refereeing standards like in those countries.
Yeah. But what I find fascinating about that is how many Scottish referees are going to be at the Euros?
Well, there's none, is there? There's none.
But Willie Collum's outstanding candidate in all these nations, and he's better than all these other nations. Because I'd heard there's like 50 different applications. I'd heard one very, very big name in the MLS was linked with this, but Willie Collum was the outstanding candidate. I mean, I know I'm getting off course, but
no.
Badly needs addressed, and it needs addressed the right way. It can't just be Rangers do it. I remember them doing it after the 1-1 draw with Aberdeen, and they looked like sore losers. Call it out when you've won 4-0. Call it out when Cifuentes is getting sent off against Dundee, and then it's getting overturned 2 weeks later. Call it out then. Don't call it out after you've been beat, because you just look ridiculous. Call it out every single week, and I'm urging every club in Scottish football to do this, not just in the SPFL. Every single club, highlight how poor your officials are, because that's the only way we get change in here. We can't just be scared to upset with referees. I've seen some of the most arrogant referees in lower leagues in Scottish football, and they end up getting big games later on in careers because they know who to please. And that is the issue here. And it's the same in Scottish football at every single level. Every single level, the wrong people are getting the higher positions because they are in with the bricks. They know who to please. And that is where we need change. That's where we need radical solutions to fix that and get the right people in, or Scottish football is going to continue to go downhill. We've got a chief executive who has lost sponsorships, put out bad television deals, put Rangers and Celtic games within 2 hours of each other on the same ground, and thought it would be fine. And he's in an 800 grand a year job for 10 years plus. We need to fix this, or Scottish football is just going to get worse and worse.
And that's the thing. How long has Doncaster been in that position for? When you look at countless seasons where there have been no sponsors for the league at all, and then there has been sponsors signed for mega deals, television deals signed for less money per game year on year, locked in for a decade. It's the old pals act in the league. And you look at people like Barry Hearn that did a kind of conference on what Scottish football could do a few years ago to kind of rejuvenate itself, and he done wonders for darts. Darts is gets phenomenal support and crowds now, and I do wonder what Scottish football looked at from his recommendations and actually implemented, because when I heard Doncaster on I think it was BBC Radio Scotland, he was saying about the way he was wanting to market the product and stuff, and it's not somebody that wants to really promote the game. So no, good points there, Scott. Absolutely good, because it is something that he's calling out. Hopefully over the summer, Clermont and the board are on the same page with that, because I think, if we're being honest, Clermont probably just didn't really get the memo in that. I think he wasn't looking to focus on that, and it needs to be addressed, because it is too often now. But so for the Scottish Cup final, obviously we had our goal chopped off. We had Sterling have a yellow card for a fantastic challenge. And of course, the Celtic goal right at the death, just to end the season the way we started it, with a 1-0 defeat. Absolutely brilliant. So now we are going to move on to another section now. We are going to look at our squad for the season, and we are going to rate the squad. So we're going to rate players from 1 to 10, 1 being poor and 10 being GOAT status. So I'll go through the players. So I've just got them just here. So our team squad for 2023-24, we're going to start with the number 1 in goal. So Jack Butland. So nice easy one for you there, Andy. Jack Butland, rate him out of 10.
9,000.
9,000.
I think
you could have said 9,001, a little bit more,
I was thinking about like 15,000 or like a million, but I thought I'd taper my expectation a wee bit, I don't want to sound like I'm going over the top about him, after all. So I thought I'll leave it there. I'll not go too high with it.
Yeah, it's not hard to argue with that. What about yourself, Scott? 1 to 10. Are you rating Jack Butland?
I was going to go higher than that. I was going to go infinity.
Infinity plus 1.
Imagine where Rangers would be without Jack Butland this season. Like,
it's a scary thought.
Probably be 4th. Like, honestly, he's been that. I think there's so many saves. I mean, there's some of the saves that are absolutely ridiculous. But see, just the big thing for me as well. See, just seeing a Rangers goalkeeper come off the line, like, you don't see that. We never saw it. As much as I love Alan McGregor, even at his best, he couldn't do it. And see just the calmness that because there's a lot. How many goals last season were conceded by just players getting in behind the defence because the goalkeeper wouldn't come off his line? Butland eliminated that. Now, I do think he'll be sold, but if it was up to me, I would be hanging on to him. I would be handcuffing him to the radiator and things like that. I'd be making sure he did not leave the football club. But I think it's going to be very, very tough to keep a hold of Jack Butland.
So, Thommo, we've got a comment here from Curry Muncher. 8 out of 10, not been great on penalties and his footwork could improve. Do you know what? I think that penalty he saved from O'Reilly might have been his first penalty save in his career. I'm not 100% on that.
I think you're right.
But when I was looking through the stats, which is something we're not quite used to. We've always had some decent keepers and penalty saves. Alan McGregor, I think even Vaterus was good at saving the odd penalty, and Stefan Kloss did like saving a penalty as well. So 8 out of 10, that's a fair enough one from Curry Muncher. So Thommo, what do you think? Jack Butland, what's his qualities? 1 or 10 or anything in between? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with Curry there. I think a solid 8. Pushing on to a 9. I think his form dropped a little bit towards the end of the season after not getting in the England squad. I don't know if that affected him a little bit. Maybe he was expecting to be in there. He didn't seem. I'd say I'm being really harsh here, really picky, but he didn't seem as assured as he was earlier in the season. But the fact he came in, took over from Alan McGregor, and has just. He's fitted in seamlessly, it's not an easy thing to do, to come in from arguably the greatest Rangers goalkeeper ever, and the Rangers fans have pretty much turned around and gone, we haven't missed him. So it says a lot that I believe he is the biggest asset we have in the squad. He'll be the one who gets sold for the most, and I agree with Scott. I think this summer he will be sold to help with our rebuild, and as sad as it will be to see him go, that needs to be the way the club conduct business. Get players for a low amount and then sell them at the peak. Too often we've been stung with the likes of Ryan Kent, Alfredo Morelos. Could have got 20 odd million for the two of them, and they end up leaving for nothing. So I think we need to sort of put our business heads on and let emotion go out of it and do what's best for the club. And as I say, I'll be happy if he stays, but I expect him to go in the summer.
Do you know what? Can't disagree with that. I think we're all quite realistic with the expectations. When we have a good player, we know that, you know what, they're probably going to make us some money. It's mad when you think about it. Jack Butland, Manchester United fan, obviously on loan at Manchester United last season from Crystal Palace, and possibly could have had, you know what, with the situation with Onana this season at United, he probably would have featured, if we're being honest. It depends how Ten Hag was probably, feeling about him, but clearly he wasn't in their plans. Been phenomenal for us. But I do have to say, though, and it's not to start a hate or anything, but in Old Firm games, bar the 3-3 draw, I know he's not had a lot to do, but he has picked the ball out the net a few times and hasn't, we haven't really seen what we can fully see from him, I think, personally. Not a criticism, really. Them games, like you say, he did change towards the latter end of the season, and I think that's just because another defence is in front of him. When that defence, I think when it's not as assured, when Clement came in, it was a phenomenal defence. It was the best in the league. We did conceded something like 4 goals in the first 10 or 12 games, which was just brilliant. It was a much more solid, and I think when you've got confidence in your defence, things are just a bit better. But yeah, no, a very good assessment there. What about yourself, Jack? What do you think for your namesake, Mr. Butland? What do you think?
Yeah, probably agreeing with about a 9 out of 10. I think he definitely did tail away a wee bit to the end of the season, but I guess he's probably the only player in the squad that you could really hold a wee bit of leeway because of how much points he obviously won us and he helped us a lot this season. If we didn't have him, exactly where would we be at the end of the season? He's been a great bit of business, great character as well. I think if we could keep hold of him, he would certainly be in my running to be the captain of Rangers next season. But I can't see it realistically. I think we'll get offers. I think himself, now that he's not making the England squads, we're playing how good he is, and not only in the Scottish Premiership but in Europe as well. He's pulled off some good saves and he's been good for us there. I think if he's playing at that level, it's his highest level he's probably played for a long time, and he's still not getting picked, I think he might fancy his options to go back down and try and make that England squad again. But 9 out of 10, he's been a really good signing for us.
Yeah, it's a shame as well because when Southgate was up at Ibrox, there was that kind of I know it wasn't really his fault, but obviously that 25-second goal that was conceded with Tav and Maeda. I don't think that kind of helped things. He did pull off a good couple of saves in that game, of course, later on. Definitely, I think he could do a job in the England squad, but I don't think in goals is their big focus at the minute, weirdly. But so yes, Robbie McCrory, kind of the next keeper along. We haven't seen much from him, so I don't think we can really rate him. He's still contracted till 2025. I think if he does want to progress his career, I think he does need to leave.
He'll be gone.
Yeah. He had a good stint at Livy. He was quite an assured keeper. And do you know what? For us, in the Old Firm games, I think he had a 100% record, didn't he? He played 2 games, didn't he? 2 wins. We haven't seen that from a Rangers player over the past couple of years. So, yeah. Obviously, John McLaughlin didn't see him this season. His contract runs out in about 28 hours, I think. I think he'll be released. I don't think we'll see John McLaughlin at the club anymore. Obviously, Kieran Wright, I think is he returning from, was it Livy he was at? Obviously, we can't really review him for that. Let's go to the back line. Connor Goldson. Now, this will be an interesting one. So, Andy, Connor Goldson, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate him for this season?
6. I don't know if that's because he's been Mr. Consistent, and obviously it's still the pain of the way we lost the title, and you start to really look back and go, it's just more of the same in the grand scheme of things. It makes you really kind of question the last 3-4 seasons, but he's been good those years, in my opinion. This season is where he's dipped from maybe high 7s, 8s down to 6, and I think he himself and the manager and the director of football recruitment will have to have conversations about where he sees his future at the club, if it is at the club or not. Obviously, we'll go on to talk about his right back partner, but I think those two are joined at the hip, and if one were to go, I think the other would maybe be pushing to join them if it were to be possible, which by media accounts would suggest it may be. But yeah, it's not. It's been a poor season for Connor Goldson, which is probably more emphasised by how good he has been in recent seasons, and I think that's why it makes it feel so bad from a supporter standpoint.
Yeah, no, very good points there. I think some players just reach the end of the road, don't they? But a good servant in some respects. 55 was brilliant. He did well to recover from his heart condition, because it's not just something that's threatening his life. It was obviously his football career. And he did well to come back from that. I worked with one of his mates, weirdly, that he grew up with at school in the Midlands. Big Liverpool fan, loves Steven Gerrard. So you can see why he was at Rangers in a sense. But he's got qualities to him. He can header a ball, but he's just
50p head. That's my
yeah.
nickname for him. I've called him that
Yeah.
for the last couple of seasons. That's the one thing I can't stand about him, and I don't know if it's more of a sign, a telling sign of our set pieces, but there's been many a time where he's rised the highest, and you're going, brilliant. He's up there.
Rose
And
Ed.
it'll find somebody in a couple rows back, hit them in the head, bit of better contact, and it came off like a corner's head. But aye, that's just more of a damning statement of our set pieces, I think.
Oh yeah, goodness, yeah. Hopefully they get worked on in the summer. But yeah, can't disagree with you there. So Scott, Connor Goldson, what do you reckon?
I have kind of been around the block with Goldson. I was strongly against giving him a new contract for much of the reasons that I think we've all came to now, is that I just didn't ever feel he was going to be part of a dominant winning Rangers side. And I know he won a league, I know he's won the Cup and League Cup, but I have never got the feeling that Connor Goldson is an out-and-out winner. Like, he's just always... There's a lot. Every single Rangers defender has got a mistake in them. Goldson does that a lot. Makes a lot of silly mistakes. He is. I do think though that most cases the defence is more solid when he's in it. Like, he's been in it far more often. He's played a lot of games as well, and this is something similar to Tav. For what he's went through in terms of the heart operation and things like that, he has played a lot of football over the past few years. And that does get a grip of you. And I think from a footballing sense, I think we need to have that conversation that can Connor Goldson be part of a Rangers rebuild in terms of a better squad? And I don't think so. And I think we're now at the stage with Connor Goldson where I think it's time to thank him for his service. He has done a lot of good for the club. But I think we're at the stage now where we just go, right, let's just move him on. Let's just go and get a big payday before it's time to give up. You've earned the payday. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously a lot of time at Rangers. If Saudi's an option, which I don't know if it is or not, go and get a big payday somewhere. Go and get a couple of years and then see where you end up. Like, go and make a good bit of money. But I just don't see his future at Rangers. I don't think he can be part of a winning Rangers defence.
Yeah, do you know what? Very good point there from Curry Muncher. Obviously, he gives him a 4 out of 10. The errors were pretty bad. Lost any pace he did have, but the extra weight to carry to protect Tav, because obviously he's covering over a little bit more, because Tav has just... I don't even have a word to describe the Tav's form that's just gone off of a cliff. With Goldson, I love the way he would take the ball, drive forward and ping a great ball out to somebody. We've seen less of that this year. Obviously, I don't want to bring up the Europa League final, but that was a very common kind of Goldson goal to concede. I know you always look at different points in an attack, but they barely had an attack in that game, and yeah, that was the one, of course. Some players come to the end of their cycle at a club. Goldson might do okay somewhere in the Championship, but the pressure's a little bit different. He can still be quite a solid centre back in some ways. He's not completely done, but I would say his time is up at Rangers. So Thommo, what do you reckon yourself? Connor Goldson, yay or nay?
Yeah, I can't add much more than what's already been said before me. I think it's time to say goodbye to him. I think the time to say goodbye to him was a couple of years ago when his contract ran out, and giving him that contract with the wages he's on is probably means we're going to be stuck with him for a little while. I don't see any team paying that amount of wages for him. And as I say, I've liked Goldson, but I think this season has just shown up his deficiencies, both in defence and in attack. And like I said, I have liked him. I think he's been a good leader, good organiser of a defence, but I think his time's up. So I would have to say just a 5, a very generous 5 for him this season.
Yeah, do you know what? Can't argue with that, really. Yeah, he's been very hit and miss like much of the back line this year. So, Jack, what about yourself, big man? What do you reckon? Connor Goldson, is he going to be higher than a 5 or lower?
Probably agree with him there, Thommo, for a 5. I think he's definitely shown his regression this season. I think in a lot of areas he's played, obviously you're saying about him pinging around the passes, and I remember very vividly the one for Aribo up at Tynecastle.
Yes.
It was a fantastic goal. We've not really seen too much of that. He always attempts them, but a lot of the time they're out the pitch.
Rosette.
He's Rosette. He'd quite a good few.
50 pence feet.
I think we've just seen a massive regression for Connor Goldson. I think watching that podcast that he was on a couple of months ago as well, I think he just looks burnt out with everything that comes with being a Rangers player. Obviously he takes a lot of the fall because he's the vice captain as well, so I think you've seen him and Tavernier just kind of the same way they've went this season. I think they look completely burnt out with what's facing about Rangers, which is a sorry story, but you can't forget obviously all the games that he's played. He was Mr. Consistent for a long time. I think the defence looked like a mess when he wasn't there, so similar to everybody else, he'll probably move on this summer, and he'll go with my thanks for his service, and that'll be him.
Yeah, can't disagree with you there. It's it is definitely the end of the road for Connor Goldson. Obviously contracted till 2026, I think it is. So yeah, that's that for Goldson. I think we lost Thommo there. I'm sure he'll come back in a second. But yeah, Goldson, like Curry Muncher says here, he was a 9 out of 10. His 2 goals at Parkhead, absolutely brilliant. And he would go through a brick wall, but we've lost that now. That player, and much not.
I think it's the brick walls that are getting us injured. To be fair, we're going through too many of these brick walls. They keep popping up. I think they're replacing like the free kick mannequins with these brick walls. I think that's the reason we're getting so many injuries. For God's sake.
Do you know what? There's nothing more frustrating, is there, when you see a player that doesn't even go in for a challenge, just suddenly go, oh, I'm going to come off. Then the next morning, there's a photograph of them in the hospital bed like that. Surgery went well, and you're just like, anyway.
They came out of roof treatment.
Yeah. Oh God.
Do you ever remember the film Mike Bassett, England Manager?
Yes.
Do you remember the bit of it where they go to this like sport institute and all the players just pick up random injuries?
I don't remember that bit.
That's what I'm sure it's that film. That's what's happening at Rangers. There's something like they're trying something in every single, because the amount of injuries Rangers have picked up over the years is absolutely insane. Like I have never. There's like bare knuckle fighting doesn't have as many injuries as Rangers do. Like it's insane, and it's the same players all the time, and they're rushing back, getting injured. That's a problem. That's something that, again, I'm going on another rant. That's something that until that gets fixed, Rangers will continue to be second. And that's why Clement deserves a lot of leeway, because I can't think off the top of my head, but I would be very, very astonished if you could count in one hand the amount of times he hasn't had to change his starting 11 since he came in.
No, I totally agree, because
he's not at a settled side.
We seem to we've adopted a system a couple of years ago that's used in the EPL. I can't remember the name of it, but Liverpool use it. A few other teams use it, but it clearly isn't working. Now, there was obviously that bit of that inquest when Beale kind of took over, and they said they're looking into the causes behind the injuries. For me personally, I think it's to do with pre-season and preparation. I don't think it's very likely, and don't get me wrong, this is an assumption. When you have massive teams of people getting injured, there's clearly something wrong. There's something wrong in the water, so to speak. I think it's processes. Are players not doing enough running? Are they maybe not? Maybe they're doing too much. What is it? You look at Giovanni van Bronckhorst and the way he would train in that kind of very European way, where it was all about technical ability and training, and it wasn't really anything about. I'm not saying there was nothing about fitness, but that was second to technical ball playing. So it'll be interesting to see Clement this summer, what he gives the guys a proper pre-season, and we'll see. Because we're sick of seeing, what was it at one point, up to 13 players injured. Is it start becoming a psychological thing where players will get a little knock and go, yeah, I can't do it. I just can't do it, especially with the pressure at the club. But Curry Muncher's just come in there and just said, is mentality causing this? It's very possible. When you've got a team that's not used to winning games at the last stage of a season to win a title, it is a possibility. So John Souttar, the defender we managed to get from Heart of Midlothian, 27 years old, I think he is now. Obviously has had the odd little injuries. But what would you say? Definitely one for the future, 1 to 10. Andy, what do you reckon to John Souttar?
I don't know if this is now me going too high on the Goldson rating, that I'm going to have to give Souttar a 7. Because saying that he's a 7 doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I wouldn't agree if you'd said 7 to me, but because I've laid my stall out with Goldson at 6, I need to go a wee bit higher. I need to adjust my ratings. Better than
the same boat as Goldson, yeah.
It's for what I think he can do. I don't know if it is the amount of injuries, the fact that I don't know if he just plays with injuries and just has to deal with it. I know that was the case at Hearts, but he didn't really afforded the time to be 100% after injuries. That I don't know. It feels like he'll play 3-4, and then maybe 1, 2, 3 games. In the fourth one, he'll pick up something, and then he'll continue to play the fifth, and he'll look bad in the fifth. It's a weird routine that Souttar's in. But I feel like there's been so many times you could say if Souttar stays fit, he'll be a great player. But I feel like that's the tagline to all the players. Like if you're in Football Manager, the description of every player would say it would be good if they weren't injured so much. That's my issue with it, is that again it's too many injuries. And again, I said this till I'm blue in the face in podcasts all season. But yep, good player, but hampered by injuries.
Can't disagree with you. I think we can copy and paste that for about half the team, can't we? And it's just so true. Obviously, Thommo, I think he's having some issues with his signal, so he's kind of dropped out. So we'll go straight round to Scott, who was next in line. What do you reckon with John Souttar? What do you reckon for this season?
I've gave him a 7. I'll give him a 7. He's played a lot of games. I think he's played over 40 games this season, which is probably more than he's played in his career in a season, because he's had a lot of bad. This is probably the only season I can think of he's remained kind of very properly fit. I think I've always thought this with Souttar. I just don't think his ceiling is his third choice centre back. He's not. He's benefited of the fact that Davis hasn't really done much. Balogun's been off and on in fitness. King hasn't really hit the heights. So he's played a lot more this season. But I think if Clement does the rebuild over the summer and brings in 2 better quality of centre-back, Souttar's third choice at best. And that to me is kind of his ceiling. So he's been fine. There's been a few times where he's been caught out. I remember a particular goal, I think it was it Kyogo's? I'm sure it was Kyogo's, where he was woefully out of position. See, for the header, he's just, I don't know what he's doing playing him on. And I think he's capable of mistakes, but I just think he's a third choice. He's a solid enough third choice option, but he's not a starter for Rangers. That's just where I'm at with him.
Yeah, Curry Muncher said would City be getting a higher score if he'd been put on the right hand side? I don't know. It's one of these things, the chemistry of the defence. There was a point where it did reach a very good point and was stable, and then with little injuries and tweaks, it's really upset it, and we've really regressed in that respect. It's a difficult one. I think a 7's probably about right for Souttar. Ben Davies, the man that's out from the cold, never really been somebody that we thought we'd really see, especially at the latter part of the season when we're looking for a title. But of course, injuries have got him back into the side, but he's not performed terribly, really. That's going to be a difficult one for ratings. Sorry, but I didn't ask you, Jack, your rating on Suter. Sorry, big man.
No,
just left you out. I just ignored you, big man.
I was going along with you anyway. I was a 7 for him as well. I think, similarly, he's done well to obviously play as many games as he has this season. Obviously unlucky with the injury at the end of the season, but for me, he's not going to be much more than a rotational kind of third choice next season, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. But I'll ask the question to yourself, Jack. Ben Davies, what do you reckon? 1 to 10?
Nah, well, how many games did he actually play? Did he play double figures in games? I honestly
played. I researched this today. Played in all 6 Europa League group games.
That's all I kind of remember him. I remember did he get credited with the goal against Betis at home? I know he went away celebrating that one, but I remember obviously he was part of the whatever Beale was cooking up for that Europa League squad. He was left for only centre half at the time, but you're probably looking at about a 3 or 4. I think at the end of the season he came in and done quite well, to be honest, playing alongside Balogun in the final, probably his best game. But apart from that, he's just not going to be good enough for Rangers. You'd really need to go and move him on. I think he's maybe still got a couple of years left in his contract, probably decent kind of English championship wages. So if you can get him off the books, great. Because I can't see him really going any better than he did at the end of the season, which was fine. I don't really see him staying around.
I've just heard that Thommo's had some technical difficulties. That's the wonderful world of live podcasting, but he does send his regards from the Rangers Journal. So unfortunately, Thommo's had to. He's trying to get back on, but unfortunately, he's having loads of technical difficulties. But don't worry, we'll get your ratings from you, Thommo. But yeah, so what we'll do, obviously we got, it's mad when you look at the squad, it's so unbelievably bloated. And it's mad because when you look at the bench, and bad, yeah, because you look at the bench and you think half the time we've got nobody really to come on. So what we'll do, dare I ask, just for number ratings now, we'll just rattle through some number ratings. I think this one's probably best because my mum always said if you've got nothing nice to say nothing at all. Bona Barisic. So, Andy, 1 to 10, Bona Barisic.
This is where your leave the room moment. No, and this is, but this is for the completely opposite reason. I hate to say, and I know this will get slagged, and to any of the other pods supporters listening that don't let me listen to me in the Gallant Few, as you know that I have my Croatia flag stapled onto me. And when called upon, I didn't think he was that bad.
Better be for Jelavic and no Barisic.
Oh well, I'm a sucker for a Croatian. But my question with the Borna this year was always, well, we like Ridvan, but where is he? And when called upon, I don't think Borna was too bad. I will give you both, and I would say Ridvan and Borna were both 7s for me.
Yeah, do you know what? I think Borna's not had his worst season. When he has been, he's put in a bit of a papatch performance at times. Has been caught out a few times when people cut in, but I think that's just one of his weaknesses. You know, I've struggled to forgive him since the Parkhead debacle. Obviously,
that's what I find a lot.
I know.
I think
that's where it does come from. Obviously, we've spoke before in a pod, haven't we, Andy? Where you know, I'm just, you know, I've got a signed Rangers pendant downstairs which has got Bona's name across it. You know, as Fox Mulder once said, I want to believe, but you know, he is able to put in. You know, you see, if you give him a ball at the byline, he can put in a cracking cross, can't he? But yeah, that's the thing with Bona. So now, just to start a fight, I'm going to ask Scott next. Bona Barisic, 1 to 10.
I think you know where I stand on this, and I get Andy's point, right? I do not disagree with it totally. My issue with Bona Barisic is he shouldn't be at the club because he should have been sold long ago, because he was one of the very few players. I remember doing a podcast during lockdown, and we were doing decade Rangers 11s of 2010, and I had him second behind Lee Wallace, and he was only there, 18 months, because he looked so impressive in the second season under Gerrard. I thought he was magnificent. He just was another example. He's been at the club too long and his limitations have been exposed. He got an absolute doing at Parkhead against Lila Bada, and he hasn't overcome that. He is terrified of that stadium. He's terrified of that jersey. He's terrified of green and white. So he's a liability in those games. The Kilmarnock game, I thought Ridvan really came onto a game in the second half of the season. See the game at Parkhead, the 2-1 game, I thought he was very, very good that game, and he just seemed to kick on from there. He then went injured, I think, after the Hearts game, and Bournemouth came in against Kilmarnock, and Bournemouth's first half was up there with one of the poorest first halves I've ever seen from a Rangers player, because he was woeful. And Rangers are behind at half-time because of that, because what he's doing for that foul is beyond me. And I just find it really hard to get over his regression at Rangers, because he was so good. I even go as far as to say he was probably as good a left back as I've seen at the club for that Gerrard kind of last 2 seasons of Gerrard. I thought he was magnificent, and he just completely fell off a cliff after that. And he should have been sold when his value was at the highest. And now you've just seen the regression, and I'll be glad to see the back of him, to be honest. I'm going to give him 5.5 because I respect the fact that he's been there a long time, but he does not want... If he had signed a new deal, I would have stopped watching Rangers, because if that... like we spoke about Davis is a good example. Somebody in the Rangers boardroom thought replacing Calvin Bassey with Ben Davis was a good decision. Giving Borna Barisic a new deal would have been up there, because what on earth is his value? You've already kept him when his value was as high as it would get. And now he's a player I can see going on to have a very, very solid... He'll do what Holander's done. He'll go into Trabzonspor where there's absolutely zero pressure on him and do very, very well. He is not anymore. He cannot be at Rangers Football Club. His value went. He regressed as a player. He got a doing at Parkhead. He should have been stripped of the jersey that night, because he was exposed that night, and he's still at the club. And there was talk of a new contract earlier in the season, and I thought, if that's the way Rangers are going, then we'll just shutting the doors and putting an Aldi where Ibrox used to be, because that just symbolises just how bad we are at recruitment. And I think it's all sense.
Yeah, do you know what? I can see it from both your point of views, to be fair. I'm not, I think it is time for Bona to go. I think, like you say, I think he will have a fairly solid career wherever he goes, but it's that different pressure when you're playing somewhere else week in, week out. But yeah, it's one of them. He at one point was probably one of the best left backs in Europe, and that's mad when you think about it. How different he could be. A little bit of Jekyll and Hyde there. So what I'm going to do now is, because obviously we're this is like therapy for us here, going through this whole squad and getting everyone's opinion, and it's doing. To be fair, it's doing wonders after the season we've had. But I think we'll be here all night if I go through the whole team. So maybe that's something we can do on our respective pods over the next few weeks. But one player I will ask, and I will ask everyone now, our club captain. So I'll go to you, Jack, first. James Tavernier, 1 to 10, would you rate him?
It's actually a harder than you think, because he's obviously scored a lot of goals. He's scored a lot of important goals through the season. Obviously a lot of assists as well that have helped us, and he seemed to be the only player in the first half of the season that would kind of dig us out of holes at times. But I don't think his defensive standpoint can be overlooked. I think he's been, again, similar to Goldson, as I say, a massive regression in terms of that. I mean, he wasn't even a great defender, but he's becoming worse. I think you've seen that at the end of the season. I don't even know what he was doing. Hearts away, the last game of the season. A terrible performance there, and I don't know if it's time for Tavernier to go and move on as well, because he just looks like he's clearly burnt out with what's required to be at Rangers, and I don't think for him as well, step him off whatever pitch it is. a loser with Rangers as the captain, set him off time after time again. Surely you have to then throw the towel in and let somebody else have a chance. But it's hard. I'd probably give him a 6 or a 7, to be honest with you. I think he's been good in parts of the season, good goals, good number of goals again. But I can't look over the fact that he's our captain and we're not delivering silverware. And he's overseen too much of that. So for me, it's probably time to see him on his way, because I feel it will get even more toxic if he continues as captain next season. And the reaction obviously is off the scale now for Rangers fans, much like myself at times as well. And I don't think we're wrong for reacting the way we do, because it's just been failure after failure. And if he stays and is part of another season of that, yeah, his legacy that he's somewhat built at the club could be shattered.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that's a very accurate assessment. There's a side to me that would hope we could utilise Tav in some sort of midfield role. I know it's been experimented with before. Maybe it's not a good idea. Tav can contribute in an attacking sense. Flip side of that, though, is why is Tav once again our top goal scorer? I know he takes penalties, but he's one of the few that will dig us out of trouble sometimes when we need it. Not all the time, obviously, as we've seen towards the end of the season when the chips were down. But yeah, I think you can throw tomatoes at a wall so many times and hope that one sticks. One did stick during 55, and I'm not criticising Tav over some of the other seasons, because he has contributed a hell of a lot. He's come through the club at a time when it's been the most bizarre kind of circumstances and situations when he came in 2016, 2017. He has been a good captain. However, we're at the point now where clearly just that next level, I don't think he's reaching it now. Playing in Europe when there's no pressure with the underdogs, he does seem to perform. But obviously this year, has he been fully doing that as well? He's definitely lost a bit of pace. Personally, maybe try him in midfield, but yeah, I do think we need to change of direction. We're not just having a rebuild next year, with the team. I think we need potentially a new captain. Dijon Sterling's taken on a lot of roles. Maybe he can take that one on as well. I don't know. But he's probably busy with his CEO role that's taking place at the minute. So yeah, no, that's so Scott, yourself, Tav, out of 10.
I went 8, and the reason I've went 8 is because I think there has been a lot of times this season where he's dug Rangers out of trouble. Like, I go back to even the PSV game. I know it ended up very, very badly, but he gets the goal when it's 2-0, and you think, there might be a comeback, and then 10 seconds later, there's another goal kind of went his way. I just think he's played a lot of games. He's played more football than I think. There'll not be many players in world football that played as many games as him consistently. I can't think of many games he hasn't played for Rangers over the past 8 seasons. He's played a lot of football, and Father Time catches up to us all. And when you're doing that all the time, you see a lot of players regress as they get to 32, which I think he is just now. I think he's just hit that point where he can't do what he used to do, and I think it's that tough. And I think that's a deeper problem. The fact that he's still the top goal scorer, I think that's a deeper problem in terms of, again, the lack of goals you're getting from your forward players. And I know Dessers is one that has got you goals, but he should have. He's got the chances. If he had any sort of clinical decision making, he'd have 40 goals this season. Tavernier's still you're relied upon, and the concern for me is he's still relied upon for the players. See, if Rangers are in trouble, give the ball to Tav. You saw that against St Mirren earlier in the season. Give the ball to Tav, he'll do something. We can't go this way anymore. Needs to change. I remember in his second season, I'm sure it was against Aberdeen. I'm sure Robertson was still the manager. He tried him in midfield and he played Lee Hodgson at right back.
That's right.
That's how long ago it was. And he looked okay. He looked as if there wasn't a lot of responsibility, because I think as well, you saw it against Maeda. Maeda has the making of him. Maeda deals with him so comfortably because he just runs round him, just gets in behind him. Tavernier doesn't have the pace anymore. Tavernier isn't switched on enough to deal with somebody like Maeda. And a lot of players, a lot of teams now. Armstrong gave him a torrid time a few times for Kilmarnock. Like, there's a lot. The boy in the last game of the season for Hearts, the right back, is it Lembiksa or something like that?
Lembikisa.
He gave him a bad time. So teams are now exploiting that, and you can't continue with that. There does need to be a decision made about him whether he can. I think you will lose his goals, but it's just a difficult conversation to have because he has been there so long that it'll be a really, really weird sight if Rangers don't have James Tavernier in their team. Like, it will be something really, really hard to comprehend. We'll be like watching Real Madrid now without Toni Kroos. It's just something you don't think of anymore. Like, he's so in with the bricks. McGregor's an example as well. McGregor at Celtic, you can't imagine the Celtic team without Callum McGregor. But Tavernier, you can see the regression, and I think that's the dangerous thing. And I think that's a priority area. Right back, I look at Celtic right back. Alistair Johnson is such a good defender, such a good, hard-working defender who's able to cover both ends of the floor. He's able to do a lot going forward, but he's very, very solid at the back. Rangers need that. Rangers need that on both sides of their full-back positions. Both full-back positions need addressed. Right back, I think they need a defender in there now. Whether you can move Tav midfield or even try him as like an inside forward or something like that, see if you can get another year or so out of him. But I just think right now, Rangers need to really look at right back as a key area in order to shake up the defence. The whole defence needs gutted. And I think we're now at a stage now that Tav is probably best just to try something different in that position.
Do you think that next right back would be the one we've got here now in Sterling, or do you think now that he's going to be more of a midfield maestro for us?
I think he can do both. Well, I think he's hasn't it? I kind of think him. He's not really played right back, has he? Like, he's not.
Old Firm game. I think the first Old Firm game this season he was thrown in.
Yeah. Did he play left back that game or right back?
Oh, it might have been left back. You might be right, actually.
I think he played left back. Like, and he was fine there.
Yeah.
But, like, I was amazed they didn't try Tav further forward and Sterling and right back. That baffled me also. I don't know what that, like, have Sterling, if you know that Maeda has Tavernier dealt with comfortably, put Sterling in there and try Tav further up. Surely that's a better. I'm not pretending I'm a football manager, but that to me just didn't make sense. Like, Sterling was further up and you'd Tavernier at the back getting exposed. Like, it just didn't fit for me. So I think Sterling would be good in there. I think though Sterling to me could be a really good number 6 next season. Like, he's got the makings of a really, really good player. And what I like about him as well is he's got the versatility. He can play anywhere. Like, you could put him in false nine. Like, he could play anywhere in that park and it would give you everything. Now, there's not many other players in that squad I would say the same about. It just concerns me. I do think that whole defence just needs fresh blood. And Sterling, are you sacrificing a really good potential midfielder to throw him in at right back where you could go and get a right back? It's a tough one. I don't know, to be honest.
Well, do you know, I think that's a good player to kind of end the kind of squad ratings on, end on a high for that, because do you know what he's probably apart from Jack Butland, he's probably our second player of the year, really, isn't he? We've just been utilising him everywhere and anywhere, and he's been putting a good job in. He's strong, he's good at winning the ball back, and just good at shrugging off people. And that challenge you put in the Old Firm game, perfectly timed, one he got a yellow card for, of course, because of course we're Rangers. It's just what happens to us. But of course today, Rangers did release the brand spanking new away kit, which we saw leaked over the past few days. that we've seen on the socials. So I'll just put a couple of pictures of it up now. Obviously, I'm going to try and do this very seamlessly, but of course, this is my first time doing it. So I'll see if this works. There we go. There's a picture there. Now, Sterling's in that picture there with Red Van. And some of the other players there, McCausland. Obviously, no Tav there, which is an interesting one that some people have pointed out. No Goldson either. But if you look at the top itself, some hints of 97 with the badge. Looks like an absolute belter. You can see a close up of the badge there. Has anybody bought it at all? Anybody been out to Ibrox this morning for the 9 a.m. queue up?
You need to take a Wonga out to buy it. You seen the price yet?
Yeah.
I'll wait till it goes on sale for 20 quid.
Yeah.
This is now.
Somebody will get me with my Christmas.
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's reaching into astronomical prices. 75 quid for a retail shirt now. Inflation's like doubled on football shirts in like the past just 20 years alone. So it is it's terrible for pricing, especially for young families. But Andy, would you reckon to it? Is it yay or nay from you?
I've yet to see a Rangers top I don't like. The badge on it makes it a winner every time.
Yeah.
That's the way I see these kids. I mean, there's been some awful wins in Scottish football. I remember some of my neighbours, Celtic fans. I remember seeing them in the Bumblebee kit for the first time and going, "Holy cow, what is that?" So I think there's the people will have these kind of, it's kind of basic. It's like, but you can have so much worse. I mean, I like it. I mean, it's a winner for me.
I like a nice wee minimalistic kit sometimes, yeah, and I totally agree. You know, you look at what Celtic had as their home kit this year, which was, I don't know, Adidas run a little bit of a reptilian
skin,
yeah, I don't know, David Icke inspired, I don't know, who knows. But yourself, Jack, would you reckon to it? Are you a fan?
I think it's probably one of the nicest offerings for Casto in terms of Rangers shirts. I think it's the badge obviously makes the shirt, but I think everything else kind of works really well. It's a nice top. I do find it strange how they've released the away kit first and not the home kit, but I guess it's been leaked for ages, isn't it? When they put up the post that, this is coming out, it was no big secret that we knew what it looked like. But I think it's a nice top. And also with the people modelling it as well, they've definitely picked out the folk that the fans still have some love for, so we won't start screaming it on Twitter about it. But I can't complain.
If Borna was in that cat,
I imagine that's how they announced his new deal.
I think Andy's definitely going to get a Borna kit with that one, aren't you? Nice wee Borna.
You know. I'll tell you what. See how the player ratings. I was hoping you were going to get to Matondo, because if there's any regular Gallant Few listeners listening, you'll know that the only person with a higher match rating or a higher rating that I would have given above Butland would have been Ravi Matondo. He's my guy. He's my goat. And long may Matondo mania run into next season and every season from now until the end of time.
I love Rabi Matondo. I absolutely do. I think he's got, do you know what? When he's on his game, he's got the absolute pace to bust past anybody. And he has got a good bit of technical ability. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Do love it. I will be a full subscriber to the Rabi Matondo fan club. Definitely agree there. So obviously the Rangers kit's out now. Obviously was leaked by Sports Direct once again, as we always seem to see with the Rangers Megastore, the official Rangers store, which isn't the official Rangers store, it's the Mike Ashley Sports Direct one. Obviously, weird things still seem to be going on. Mike Ashley still has interests towards Rangers, still has the rights to the mega store page. So if you are looking to buy a Rangers kit, do not go through Sports Direct, especially some fans in England. You know, they might not be too familiar with the whole situation, especially fans abroad. I think that's the ones that fall for that. If you can't buy direct from Rangers Local Store, go somewhere like Grieve Sports. They've always been very good with Rangers, and they're very good with shirt printing and stuff as well. But you know what, there's still so much to talk about, but you know what, we're just not going to all fit it in tonight. We've had an absolute brilliant AvenGERS pod this month, so we'll obviously be meeting up again probably in a few weeks over the summer for more some more chat about Rangers. It's an exciting summer. We haven't even got to some of the signings and potential signings that are in the works, so we're obviously starting our work early so that when the 1st of July comes around and everyone's back on the training ground, we can get full pre-season behind a lot of the guys. But first of all, thank you everybody for being on the pod. Yourself, Andy, yourself, Jack, Scott, and of course Thommo, who's had some technical problems. But Andy, once again, give us all the socials and what you guys have got coming up over the next few weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Good night. Yeah, the Gallant Few Daily News is our main thing. You'll find Colin and the rest of the guys doing daily news. We usually do a Thursday and Sunday live show. Obviously, we've kind of hit that summer break, and I believe that we are going into a kind of new schedule, which I believe will be going up on our socials soon. So keep an eye on that one, the Gallant Few one on Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon as well. £1 a month if you're interested in more Rangers content. I'll certainly be trying to get some interesting shows onto the Patreon because it's been in the works for a while, and this summer break's a perfect time to launch some new stuff, I think.
Oh, absolutely does. Fantastic work at the Gallant Few as always. I do listen to your morning updates. They're always a good way to start the day, and it's just fantastic work that you guys do over there. Jack, every other Saturday, give us all your details. Listen to you on Spotify, and very good podcast. What you guys got planned over the summer?
Kind of more of the same. Obviously, as Andy said there, it gets a bit stagnant in the summer. You need to think of new things to go and put out. But yeah, we're going to be following obviously the rumours every day. The Rangers Journal, shout out to them, are a really good source for all the info that you need for that. So a lot of transfer focused stuff, a lot of focus on the squad and where it's heading. We do a lot of kind of tier list rating stuff like we did on here. And I will be maybe taking a focus onto the Euros as well. While that's on, it will be kind of hard to ignore. And you can find us on YouTube at Every Other Saturday Podcast, and our Twitter's been going round the banner on the bottom of the screen. So I will still have more content coming for the summer if you're interested.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, keep it up, guys. And Scott, what you got planned over the next few weeks? You got a podcast planned this Sunday, I believe.
I do, yes, and I think it's the same team, so we'll look forward to that. Final episode of the Rangers assessment for the season, then I'm going to have a week off, which I haven't had in Christ knows how long, so I'm just going to have a week kind of doing very little just to get prepped for the Euros. Euro stuff will be coming out daily. We're going to hopefully have a group preview every day starting next week, so the 8th, so maybe will be a group a day leading up to the tournament. So that'll be good. We've got a lot planned in terms of the Euros. Got a transfer show that's hopefully going to kick off middle of June. Hopefully you guys are on that as well. There's a lot planned. Got a few kind of historical things planned. Got a few documentary kind of series that I've looked at. We're on Patreon as well. I'm hoping to get that off the ground, and a lot kind of more content coming out over the summer in terms of kind of historical content, kind of different things. So there's a lot planned. It's just, as you say, just get to the end of the season, and as you say, football never stops. We've got a lot of stuff on. Final episode will be on the YouTube channel on Monday, so stay tuned for that. And then after that, as I say, much like the guys, will be every bit of news. Will hopefully be kind of all over. There's a lot of stuff kind of seeming to kind of be coming out kind of every couple of hours. So I imagine we'll be kept very busy.
Yeah, it's never quite with Rangers, is it? Well, guys, absolutely fantastic. SM Media do fantastic stuff. Gallant Few do great stuff as well. Every other Saturday, just brilliant. And of course, Thommo, who was having some technical problems with the Rangers Journal. If you want to find the Rangers Journal on Twitter, it's at Rangers Journal. They do pump out a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of great insights into players that we should probably be looking at. And I think a few of those lads should be working down at Ibrox this summer. I think they could help Niels Coppin out a little bit. So thanks ever so much to Thommo from the Rangers Journal. Thank you everyone out there that's been watching and sending in your comments. It's been greatly appreciated. This is my first live stream on the Ibrox channel YouTube. I don't really use it much, but you know what? I think I'm going to do it in future. So this has somehow gone well. I've been pressing buttons and things have been working. So it's been good so far. I was trying to play a track from a guy on Twitter called Gavin, who's Gavin Bruin. He did have a remix of Simply the Best, which was a nice bouncy version, which was quite good. But could I get it working? Oh, it all worked when I was doing a wee trial, but no. If you go, it's GFB Simply the Best featuring Timmy Kuali. GFB, find that on SoundCloud. It's an absolutely brilliant track, and Gavin, he's always on Twitter and always commenting on the Rangers posts. So cheers for the track, Gavin, but unfortunately just couldn't play it. But yeah, so we'll obviously be back soon. Obviously, check out everyone's channels. There'll be content over the summer, because even though it's the summer, there's plenty of Rangers stuff coming out. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for watching at home. Have a good evening. And don't forget, we are the AvenGERS. See you later. And you can tell this is live because I'm doing this all wrong.